Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you're here. So my name is Alisha and this is going to be an all levels Hatha yoga class. Before we get started, please make sure that you have a mat or some other non-slip surface, and please also have a blanket or some kind of padding. So I'm going to guide us through various movement and breath practices, and I just want you to know that everything I guide is optional, okay? If you need to take a break, please take a break. If you need to rest, please rest, all right? So to get started, we're just gonna find a standing position for a moment. Let's set up our feet so they're about as wide as our hips. Good. Let's extend through the legs, but not lock the knees. So some of us are gonna micro bend the knees just a little bit. Good. Letting the arms go for just a moment. We're gonna take a breath and bring the shoulders up toward the ears. And then a long breath out as we just slowly lower the shoulders. Good. Checking in with the legs for a moment, spreading the toes wide, lifting the spine up out of the hips. Again, breathe in. And slowly exhale from your nose or mouth. Good. All right, so this time, taking care to point the tailbone down so it's just a little flatter, a little firmer here at the lower belly. Still the toes are spread, still the spine is long. We'll take a breath, shoulders come up toward the ears, and exhaling down. Good. So go ahead, bring your arms to your sides. Make sure there's still a little bend in your knees. We're going to extend the hands out to the sides like so. All right? If this is a very strong sensation in your fingers and your wrists, just soften it a little bit. The fingers could be pointing straight down. So here we go, stepping into the feet, taking a full breath as you lift up through the crown of your head, and then exhaling. Let's let that go, let's soften that. All right, we're gonna bring our hands to the same position, and then bringing your head toward one side or the other, it doesn't matter which, and just finding this gentle, easy side nod with the head, okay? Good, so one side of the neck is nice and open. Let's take a full breath there. And then on your exhale, just soften the shoulders a little bit. Good, we'll bring the head right back to the center, release the hands and arms. You might open and close the hands a few times. Just make some half circles with the wrists. Good. And then we're gonna go ahead and push it right back down, pointing the fingers in opposite directions. Still a soft bend in the knees so that we have a strong, stable base. Good. And then dropping the head to the other side, those same easy side nods. If it feels good to hold something in a particular place, then you can do that. Good. Breathing into the open side of your neck. Maybe letting your mouth hang open, feeling that stretch across your jaw. And then go ahead, straighten up the spine, let the arms go. Good, and lengthen the neck. Beautiful. If you were looking at yourself from the side, you would see that your head is balanced on top of your spine. Good, as opposed to pushing the head forward as we might tend to do. Good, just bringing it back a little bit, almost having that sensation of leaning backwards. Okay? Good, so coming back to your mountain pose, feet as wide as the hips, arms relaxed, palms facing forward. Good. Reaching up through the top of your head. And then exhaling. Good, breathing in, reaching up through the crown. And exhaling. Good. So let's make our way down to the mat, down to the floor. However you're going to get there. And let's use our blanket for support under the seat. And let's find what's called an easy seated pose, whether it is or not is up for discussion. But in any case, we've either got one ankle resting in front of the other or one ankle resting on top of the other. Finding your seat. Good. Lengthening your back. Just gently hugging your shoulder blades in towards your spine. Good. Noticing the front, tops of the shoulders. Is there any space? Is there any gentleness or ease that you can find there? Good. All right, full breath in. We're going to bring the heart forward a little bit. Good. A long breath out from your nose or mouth. We're going to round mostly the upper back. Good. Dropping the chin toward the chest. Beautiful. Slowly moving the heart forward again. You can point your elbows toward the back of the space. Good. Slow breath out. As you round the back, you could extend your arms forward and hold your knees in this way. Good. So let's just do once more in each direction. Inhaling, leaning forward any amount, opening the heart, stretching across your collarbones. And exhaling, we're making some space between the spine and the shoulder blades. Good. Let's make our way back up. And then let's switch up the position of the legs. Okay, the non-habitual arrangement of your feet. Again, finding your seat, feeling it solid underneath you, finding that length in your spine. Maybe you even detect more length on the sides of your body at this point. Good. All we're going to do here is drop the shoulders, soften the area around the eyes, let the belly be soft. Good. Take a breath in through your nose and out from your nose or your mouth. Good. On the inhale, channel of the throat is open. On the exhale, we can let everything go. Okay. So from here, just a little movement. Really any amount of movement is fine. It could be that you're keeping your spine extended, leaning side to side. And then maybe over time, you become more fluid and sinuous about it. If it feels safe and comfortable for you to close the eyes, that can be an interesting way to get more information about bodily sensations. Good. The body's response to what we do here. Good. If you like, you could find some small circles, medium circles. You probably want to keep them as slow circles. But just beginning to move in one direction. It could be nice to use the hands to walk yourself around. Good, just to make contact with the floor like that. And then at some point, we're going to pause and then move in the other direction. Okay? So just make sure you go both ways, all the way around. Take your time and notice any differences in the sides as you're moving. Could be one hip is a little tighter. Could be that you notice some hamstring differences between the sides. We aren't symmetrical, and that's okay. So once you've made a few more circles, once you've eased your way back into the center, let's find our seated position. We'll take a full breath in, and then we'll let the breath go. Good. As you're ready, folks, we're going to extend the legs out in front of us. Okay? So, staff pose. Might be sitting up on a blanket. Feet as wide as your hips. Now, even though this is a seated pose that doesn't really move around or require much bendiness, it's still very challenging, right? So I brought myself to sit up against a wall just for that incredibly supportive support. And just letting the shoulders press against the wall. If you don't have a wall behind you, I'm sorry. You'll have to try this later. And in the meantime, we'll come back to our staff pose. We're going to make it just a little more gentle for ourselves. So, bending the knees, bringing the feet wider. Let's sit up tall. So bringing the front of your body closer to the tops of your legs. Good. Taking a breath here. And then on the exhale, leaning forward any amount with a flat spine. Okay? So probably feeling some amount of stretch or sensation in the lower back. Good. Little by little, if it's comfortable for you, if it's sustainable for your low back, you can roll yourself forward into this really wide, loosey-goosey forward bend. All right? We're going to hang out here for a couple of breaths. You can just notice some expansion in the back of your body. Notice that you can soften your jaw. Notice that your feet and hands don't need to be doing anything right now. You can just let go of a few things. Good. So from that forward bend, let's just roll up one vertebrae at a time until we're again sitting up tall with the flat back. And now we're going to bring the hands behind us, spreading the fingers wide. You can have your wrist pointed to the sides or behind you or even forward. It's up to you, but do set up the wrists with care, okay? Stepping the feet in toward us a little bit. What we're getting ready to do is a reverse tabletop position. So as soon as we get there, we can shuffle around a little bit, adjust the hands, give ourselves more space between the hands and the feet if that's what we need, just to make sure that your knees are above your ankles as opposed to this, right? Okay, tabletop position. What we can do here is lift up from the front hips. Good. Keeping all sides of the neck long, crown points back. Let's take a breath. And then we're going to slowly, slowly lower the seat. Good. Sitting up tall, finding the structure in your back body. And then again, let's lean forward any amount. Good, just as a fairly gentle counter pose to that bridge pose. Good. All right, taking a breath, sitting back up. We're either going to do that reverse tabletop position again, or if you'd like, you could play with a reverse plank pose. So the latter is going to be a little more challenging. I'm going to guide us through both. So setting up your wrist so that the position is comfortable and sustainable. Good. If you're coming back to reverse tabletop position, please remember not to collapse your shoulders. Got to keep those joints strong. And please also know that you don't have to lift up, so that the belly is on level with the shoulders. It's not necessary. Anyway, let's find tabletop position, reverse tabletop, if that's what works today. If you want to play with reverse plank, same setup in the arms. I'm going to keep the legs long as they were in our staff pose a few minutes ago. Good. And let's point the toes. There's a lot of pointing the big toes toward the floor. So initially, just lifting yourself away from the mat, keeping the shoulders supported and strong. And then some of the action here comes from pointing the big toes toward the mat. So see, that lifts the fronts of the legs. Good. Arms are strong and active. Good. Take a full breath. Don't forget that. Beautiful. And then slowly lowering down. Also lowering down if you were in reverse tabletop. Adjusting the feet. You know where we're going with this. We're just going to drop in for a few more easy, easeful breaths in a forward fold. So you can stay there just noticing. That's a lot of this practice is just paying attention. Good. So beginning to move out of that easy forward fold that we were in for a few moments and a few breaths. Just making your way up. Let's find our blanket or our padding. And let's take this prop, set it up in the middle of the mat. Okay? Blanket at the center here. We're going to find a kneeling position. So, one thing about kneeling is that it's not always comfortable for us, right? If you don't have blocks at home, and I don't have any to demonstrate with today, If you don't have blocks, please know that you can use a blanket to make this kneeling position a little more comfortable, sustainable for you. Just rest the blanket, backs of the legs, rest the seat on top of the blanket. And then this is a time when 2 blankets would be nice, right? One for under the knees, one for under the seat. In any case, those are just modifications that we can make so that our practice is safer for us. So from this kneeling position, please know you can keep your seat at your heels. You can also come to standing on the knees, like so. Good, just make sure that the knees are wide enough that you feel stable. All we're gonna do here is continue warming up our neck and shoulders a little bit. We all need that, I think. So let's find our full wingspan, okay? Full wingspan here. Just taking a few breaths, exploring what space you have in your shoulder joints. Good. And then bringing the arms to about the same level, looking side to side. Sometimes we think they're level and it's really just not the case. It's an interesting part of the practice, noticing the asymmetries, right? So all we're gonna do here is bring the arms forward, round the upper back. Good, bring the chin toward the chest and lean back. So if you're already kneeling, this is all we're doing. It's just a little more rounding the low back. Good, so here we go. Beautiful, let's open it back up, all the way up. We're gonna reach the fingertips toward the space behind us. Okay, so there might be this little tug all the way through the arms. It's all good. It's going to be fine. You can soften it if you need to. Taking a breath here. And then exhaling, rounding the back, pointing the fingertips forward, leaning back. Good. Last time. Inhale, open it up. This time we're going to bring the arms up. Good. And on the exhale, we're going to drop the shoulders. Okay. Breathing in, shoulders reach up. And breathing out, dropping the shoulders. Good. Breathing in, open up the hands, spread the fingers wide. Breathing out, let's bend both elbows for cactus arms. So I've got my palms facing in. You can also have them facing up if you prefer. Good. Again, making sure that you're strong and stable in the legs. Lower legs are about parallel behind me here. Good. So exhaling, we're going to bring the forearms close together. They may not touch, depends on a lot of things, tightness of shoulder and back and all the rest. If you can bring your forearms together, all fine. If you need some space between them, also fine. So before we move on, still some of us are kneeling, that's fine. Let's just make sure that we have taken a breath recently. Good, and then on the next inhale, we're going to open this up. We're going to flip the palms out and push the walls away. Good, you can open this up for a moment. You can find a little back bend. Good, and then we're going to bring it back, bending the elbows. This time dropping the elbows close to the belly button. Okay, just one more time through those movements, bringing the arms up. Good, pushing the walls away, taking a breath. And then exhaling, tucking your tailbone, opening up the space between your shoulder blades, dropping your chin toward your chest. Good. Okay, let's let that go. I'm going to move out of this kneeling position and into a tabletop position. So you can adjust your blanket as needed. Good. Bringing the hands to the mat. Bringing the knees to the blanket. Good. Widening the knees just a little bit. And all we're going to do here is look down at the floor. Okay? Noticing the energy in the arms, not collapsing the shoulders. We're keeping those joints strong. Noticing what the feet are doing, keeping the feet on line, so to speak. Good. All right, take a full breath. Go ahead, ease on back into child's pose. So, easing back into child's pose. Hips to the heels. Good. Arms extended. And just taking a few breaths here, let your belly drop. Good. If it's comfortable to close the eyes, you can close the eyes, or just keep a soft gaze. Good. Taking a moment to just gently open and close the hands from your child's pose. Good. And if you like, you could find a gentle shifting side to side with the tail. Okay, that can help to lubricate the hips a little bit. Making our way from child's pose to tabletop position once again. Good. Remember, knees are wide. And I'm going to encourage you for the next 30 or 45 seconds just to move around however you want to, however it makes sense to move. Good. And it could be that you just hang out in a resting pose, like this sort of modified puppy pose. You could always come back to child's pose if that was really working for you. But otherwise, from the position of tabletop, just exploring space, allowing for spontaneous movement. Good. Taking up some more room, heaven forbid, right? Good. And then from your tabletop, let's come back to stillness. Let's come back to structure. And let's take a breath in through the nose and out from the nose or the mouth. Good. Full breath in. And full breath out. Good. So, dropping down onto the forearms. Let's interlace the fingers. Good. And we've got our elbows pretty close to underneath the shoulders. Does that make sense? Good. Stepping one foot back. Just gonna move forward, move back. We're stretching out the foot and ankle and the back of the leg. Yes. Good. So then, just lifting that leg up any amount. For me, I've got my left knee on the floor, my right leg lifted. It really doesn't matter which side you do first. Okay? Slowly dropping that first leg, shifting sides, being conscious of those transitions between the sides, they matter too. Let's also change the interlace of our fingers on this side. Okay? Good. At some point, lifting the leg up behind you any amount. Let's keep the toes pointing down. Beautiful. Make sure you take a full breath in and a full breath out. Good. Bring both knees down. You could keep the fingers interlaced, or you could bring forearms parallel to each other. Fingers spread wide, of course. What we're going to do is step back into some variation of a forearm plank. All right? So what that means is that some of us are going to have knees resting on the floor, toes tucked. Some of us are going to step both feet back. Good. Checking to make sure shoulders are above the elbows, feet are as wide as the hips. Again, dropping the knees whenever you need to. Good. Just one more breath. And then let's make our way from whatever variation we were in back to child's pose. So, taking a little rest from child's pose. I'm going to suggest bringing arms alongside your body for this one. Some of you are going to reach down and hold your heels. Good. Just 2 or 3 breaths in your child's pose. Good. Moving forward, Here we go. Let's find tabletop position once again. Knees go wide. Gonna move the hips in a teardrop shape. So there's a big swoop at the end, moving the hips over to the side, and then bringing the hips forward. So just imagine that the point of the teardrop is at the top of your mat, and then the rounded, full bottom of the teardrop, or raindrop, is more toward the center of the mat. So eventually we can move the hips all the way around. I'd suggest slowing it down as you bring the hips to the side, forward, to the other side, and back. Good. Lubricating the hip joints, liberating the low back. Good. Also working in the groin, etc. So at some point, we're going to want to move in the other direction. Just take a moment to notice your knees. Maybe you need another blanket, but we won't be doing this for much longer. Good. All right. Let's go ahead, move all the way down onto the belly. So you could have this blanket underneath your front hip points, for example. We're just going to make a little pillow for the head. Let the legs extend behind us. Good. Take a couple of breaths. One thing that can feel nice here is to bend the knees. Just let the lower legs drop side to side. Good. So, bringing the front of the body to the floor. Doesn't really matter which side of the face is pressed against the mat. Let's have palms facing up. Good. Just taking a few full breaths and noticing how it feels to have the floor pushing back against that expansion of the front body. Just gives you more information about where you're breathing, etc. At some point, if you like, you could just gently turn the head in the other direction and take a few more breaths. Good. And then just know that the next pose we're going to do is a downward facing dog. So you can hang out here on your belly for the next 15 or 20 seconds if you like. Just going to begin to make our way toward downward facing dog. And if you're going straight there, feel free to play around like we did in those early stages of tabletop position, right? Just spontaneous movement, paying attention to the messages that the body is sending. Chances are, if we pay attention to those messages, then maybe our body sends more and we get more information all the time. So, making your way into a downward facing dog. You're welcome to start from a plank pose just to measure the down dog. Fingers spread wide. Good. Arms are long. Beautiful. Legs at the back of the mat. Feet about as wide as your hips. So this is optional if you'd like to play a little bit. Floating forward into a plank pose, taking a breath here. Exhaling back to a downward facing dog. And at this point, if you wanted, you could deeply bend the knees, find a little movement in the hips. Good. Floating back. Plank pose. Sometimes I like to just shift my weight from plank pose, working these tiny muscles that we never think about, right? Good. Breathing here. And downward facing dog. Lowering the heels and then lifting them up high all the way to the toes. Good. Lowering the heels. Good. Lifting the heels up high. Come back to plank pose. Take a breath. Keeping in mind, we could be doing a modified plank with knees on the mat. If you'd like a little more challenge, who wouldn't? Feel free to lift your left leg up behind you, holding that for 1 or 2 or even more breaths. And then of course you'll switch sides at some point. You could also do that from a modified plank. Okay? So just take a few rounds, rest if you need to. You're welcome to hang out in downward facing dog. Good. So at some point, from our downward facing dog, let's extend the left leg up behind us, and we've got three-legged dog. Now here's the thing. Let's make sure left toes point down, left heel points up, so we're not yet opening that left hip, right? If that means that the foot is way down here, totally fine. It doesn't have to be, splits. So all we're gonna do, is step that left foot to the top of the mat. Adjusting the right leg so it's strong and supporting you. Good. Now would be a great time for blocks if you've got them. Just a block under each hand. Good. I have a husky. There's spurt everywhere. Good. So here you are in your lunge. Just going to hang out here for a moment and breathe, catch our breath. Good. Pressing into your left foot, feeling the strength of that left quad, right? Beautiful. So very slowly lowering your right knee to your blanket or whatever padding you've got. All right? I've got my fingers tented, as you see. You could also make fists if that's more comfortable for both finger joints and your wrists. Good. So all we're going to do is untuck the right toes, and either with or without the aid of blocks, just shifting forward and back. Nice and easy, nice and slow. Breathing. I suggest breathing in as you move your body forward. Suggest breathing out when you round your back. Good. Now, of course, this left leg can be bent the whole time. That is absolutely fine. Beautiful. At some point, though, we're going to pause and we're going to hold this pose for a few moments. This is a very deep expression of the pose. If you need to just shorten the pose by bringing left heel closer to the right knee, that's something that works. Also, whether you can see it or not, I'm using this wall for support. All right? We've got options, is what I'm trying to say. So, finding some hip stretch, some variation that serves your body, that keeps you safe, that helps you feel well, that doesn't send your mind into a tailspin, right? Good. And we also have options with hands and arms, of course. I was just interlacing my fingers above the knee. You could also bring your hands to the heart or front of the body. Sometimes it's nice for these sort of back bends to have a little bit of support at the low back. So you could hold opposite elbows. Good, and of course there's everyone's favorite exalted, etc., etc. Okay? Good. We're going to move out of that slowly, and we're going to shift our weight back, right? Left leg is extended out in front now. I'm keeping my left foot pretty relaxed, although you could draw the toes towards your face somewhat. All right, again, strong bend in the left knee is what I've got, and that is totally fine. Some of you who have splits in your practice, you're welcome to make your way in that direction. And for those of us who don't have splits in their practice, this is one way that we can start to get there, if that's what we want. Good. Before we move on, and again, this would be a good time for blocks, so I'm just going to use the wall. Let's just find a little wave with the left foot. I'm really exaggerating it, but just moving from the left hip and letting that left foot wave hello. Good. All right. So let's find these stretches on the other side. We're gonna move through downward facing dog as our in-between pose. If you have chaturanga in your practice, feel free to do that. If you'd like to come back to a plank pose, modified or not, you could do that. Whenever you're ready, taking about another 2 or 3 breaths. Good, coming back to downward facing dog. Bringing the weight into the left leg and extending the right leg up and back. Right toes point down, right heel points up. Keep the shoulders in their sockets. Good. And then moving slowly, let's shift the weight forward while we bend the right knee and bring it to the top of the mat. Good. So, blocks would be fun. Right toe pointing forward. Left leg is strong and active. Good. Keeping the back of your neck open. Soft gaze on the floor. Let's breathe in through the nose. And breathe out from the nose or the mouth. Good. Notice if you can just find that little half smile we did earlier, keeping the lips together, lifting the corners of the mouth. And I know you feel silly doing it, but we've got our reasons. Let's move through our runner's lunges a little bit. We can keep the right knee bent. We can walk the hands with us. Good. We're not looking for perfection. Good. We're looking for sustainability and often gentleness, I think, right? So, at this point, I'm going to drop in for a deeper hip stretch. Of course, it is optional. If it would be better for you to shorten your stance or even use the support of a wall, please do that. Because refusing to support ourselves in the ways that we need to is probably ego, right? So find your variation. Good. And then whenever you're ready, let's float the hands down. Let's shift the hips back. Good. Okay, so here, with the right leg extended, and notice I didn't say straight, I said extended, so there's probably some amount of bend in the right leg. Good, and we're just gonna hang out here for a moment. So keeping the spine as long as possible. If you need to bring this right foot in a little bit, even bringing it to the floor, that's totally fine, okay? Might be feeling some sensation or stretch at the back of the leg, so through the hamstrings, maybe even IT band, right? Connecting the knee to the hip. So let's move out of this slowly. Good. I'm going to bring myself upright. I'm using a wall for support. Now we can extend the right leg again. Keep that right hand at the hip. And just finding the movement that originates in the hip and then goes all the way down, resulting in that foot waving, right? Good, okay. So bringing ourselves back to our lunge, tucking the left toes. If you'd like to move through chaturanga or hold a plank pose, that's an option. We're gonna meet back in our downward facing dog. Fingers spread wide, seat lifted high, good. Heels can be high up in the air as well. We're gonna draw the belly button in toward the spine. Take a full breath in. And a full breath out. See what you can do about just dropping the heels an inch or two toward the floor. Good. Breathing in, lifting up high. Breathing out. Good. So we're just going to mosey on up to the top of the mat. You could take a few steps to get there. You could also hop to get there. And once you find yourself in that forward fold, let's move slowly, carefully into a flat back pose. So bend the knees a little bit, butt is sticking out. Let's reach the arms alongside us toward the back of the room. Good. So breathe in here, firm belly. Good. Filling up the lungs all the way. And then let's exhale. Drop it all the way into a forward fold. Standing forward fold, deep bend in the knees. You could widen the feet, just let the whole body drape down. Good. And then keeping the feet as wide as they are, extending through the legs, finding your flat back again, drawing shoulder blades in toward the spine. Good. Palms are facing in. Let's take a breath. And let's exhale. Good. So we're going to do a little shuffle on our mat. We're going to turn so that feet are long ways. Okay. Good. And let's just move straight into a wide forward fold for a few minutes, or at least a few breaths. So for this wide forward fold, you could have your feet about parallel. You could have the toes in and the heels slightly out. You could hang out in this flat back position for a few breaths, if that is working for you. Good. Eventually, though, make your way into whatever pose you like to do. Whatever you usually do is fine. Again, I'm going to find a spot against the wall because I just like that support. It's a great option. It's a slightly more restful option, right? So, finding wide forward fold. You can support your head with some blocks or folded blankets. Just going to let the head be nice and heavy. Bring the face to neutral if it isn't already. Good. You might explore different options in your arms for different shoulder stretches. Right? Good. And then at some point, let's just softly bend the knees and then take about 2 or 3 more breaths in through the nose and out from the nose or the mouth. Good. Take your time. Good. If it feels okay, you could gently nod the head yes, shake the head no. Good. And then what we're going to do, folks, is move out of this by bringing the hands forward, toe heeling the feet together until they are wider than your hips. And then let's slowly bend the knees as we lift the heels. Good. Finding ourselves in a yoga squat. So I think for most folks, the heels are usually lifted. You could bring them down to the mat if that's where you want to be. But let's just hang out here for a moment. Long spine, as usual. Good. Head balanced on top. Crown reaching straight up. Good. If I had a block, I'd be putting it under my seat right now. That can be a real game changer, having a supported squat pose, right? Okay, so as you're ready, adjusting the legs so that the knees are pointing forward, arms outside the knees. All we're doing is moving back into a forward fold. Beautiful. Hands at the hips, soft bend in the knees. Just gonna hinge all the way up. Whew, okay. Taking a few steps in this standing position, just big steps. You could be slowly drawing some half circles in order to give your hips a little more love. Lots of things we can do here. Again, wall is our friend. Just trying some things that you don't usually do, right? Good for your brain, good for your body, good for making connections between the two. So here we are standing on our mat. I would recommend still keeping it long ways because we are going to do some poses that take up some space. So just a few more strong, energetic poses, and then we will make our way down to the mat and finish our class in a more easeful, quiet way. Good. So, standing in this wide-legged position, I've got my toes pointed out, I've got my heels in, and I'm reaching up through my spine. I'm leveling my chin with the floor so that the channel of my throat is open for breath. Good. All we're going to do here is just bend the knees a little bit, making our way toward horse pose. And what I like to do is just move between straight legs and slightly bent knees, because a lot of times these inner thigh muscles are a little tight, the groin is tight, right? So we can take it easy and gradually, spreading the toes wide to grip the mat underneath you. Let's find our horse pose. Good. So of course, there is a back bend that happens here, right? If you find that to be a really strong sensation, it's possible to tuck the tail a little bit in this horse pose. Find something that works. Find something that feels safe, all right? So from our horse pose, we're going to step into the feet, extend the legs, sweep the arms up and overhead for 5-pointed star. Good, palms are open, feet gripping the mat, lifting the eyes, letting the mouth hang open. Good, as you're ready, bringing the head back to level, floating the arms down. Good, take a full breath. And then exhale, bending the knees. Here we are back in horse pose. So what we're going to do is drop the right shoulder in toward the center, and then the left elbow is going to bend in toward our ribs. So right shoulder drops into the center, left elbow in toward the ribs, little spinal twist. Good. Come back to the center. Let's breathe. Let's straighten the legs. Ooh. 5-pointed star. Keep your balance. And then exhaling again. Good. Horse pose. This time drop the left shoulder in. Right elbow bends in towards your ribs or hip. Good. Lift all 10 toes for a moment. And then come back to the center. Press into the feet. Inhale all the way up, 5-pointed star with any amount of back bend. Good. And letting that go, letting the arms drop, still keeping the wide legs position. Beautiful. We're going to find our horse pose. And this time, keeping the knees bent, let's sweep the arms up and find goddess. So elbows bent, palms facing in. You might look side to side, just see that you can draw your elbows back a little bit. It's a very strong pose, right? Let's take a breath. Press into the feet, extend the arms up, and then exhaling, let the arms go. Good, breathe in, breathe out, horse pose. Good, breathe in, arms up. And breathe out, goddess pose. We're going to hold this for 2 more breaths. You can always just extend the legs a little bit so it's not such a deep hold in the legs. Good, breathing in, we're pushing up and out. And breathing out, let's float into horse pose. Good. Just one more thing here. We're going to inhale to goddess. And then we're going to go ahead and just break the frame of the pose and move and breathe just spontaneously. So let's pay attention to the knees. Yeah? Let's keep breathing. You're welcome to close your eyes. You're welcome to just rest in some held pose. Good. But after a little bit of movement, Let's come back to our strong, very strong horse pose. And just one more thing here. So right now, I'm not using my legs much. I'm just using my arms to support me. Yes, my elbows are locked. I could bend them. And yes, that makes it harder. But just notice the small shift when I bring the strength into my legs and let my arms relax. Good. So once again, taking it out of my legs, bringing it into my arms. Legs aren't very active at all. Okay. And then strengthening the legs, letting the arms go. Good. We're gonna press up slowly. Let's just toe, heel the feet in. Take a breath. And you're welcome to notice the breath by bringing the hands to the front of your body. Or you could notice the breath with the hands at the waist. And you can also just notice the breath from a standing position. Good. All right. So hands at the heart. We're going to be making our way down to the floor pretty soon here. A couple of options. If you have sensitive knees, and it would be better for you to just make your way down slowly, please do that. I'm going to guide a little challenge where we lower ourselves down a bit at a time. So totally up to you what you want to do. First, bringing yourself onto the balls of your feet. Good. Balancing here, heels are lifted. Feet are about as wide as the hips, maybe even a little wider. And we're going to keep the knees tracking forward as we lower ourselves a little at a time, keeping our balance. Good. Eventually landing the seat at the heels. Let's again find our yoga squat. Good. So just for a little fun here, bringing your right hand to the floor inside your right leg, and then just swooping the left arm up. Good. Take it easy. You might keep the head facing forward. If it feels okay in your neck, you can look up toward the left hand. Good. And we'll switch sides. So left hand meets the mat, right arm reaches up. Good. Welcome to do it once more each side. Of course, we're getting a nice foot stretch if you haven't noticed. Good. Making our way down onto our seat. Okay. So here we are, back again. Let's take a breath in and out. Good. Then making our way down onto the back of the body on the mat. So first, just finding a little movement, making that adjustment from being upright to reclining. Any small movements, any stretching of the legs, little circles in the ankles could feel good, right? Good. So before we finish our class, let's pay a little attention to the hips. We're going to do figure 4 pose. So it's reclining, and it's an option we can take instead of pigeon pose, because sometimes that asana puts a lot of pressure on our knees, right? So I've got my left knee bent. I'm keeping my left foot active because that actually protects the knee joint in this pose. Good. For the moment, my right foot is on the floor, and it could stay there if this already feels like a good stretch for you. Making sure that the back body is balanced on the mat. If you'd like a little bit more, you can lift the right foot away from the mat. You could hold the left knee and and left foot. You could also wrap the arms around. You can get pretty creative with this, but we're going for a stretch on the outside of the buttocks. If you've done pigeon pose before, you know what you're looking for. I'm going to suggest keeping both feet active. all right? And for the moment, there's nothing else you need to do. All we need to do is just take a few breaths. Good. Letting the back of your neck sink toward the floor. Good. Moving out slowly as we do, dropping your right foot to the floor, uncrossing the left ankle, and then reaching both legs up for just a moment. Again, little circles in the ankles and feet could feel nice. Maybe just bending and straightening the knees. Good. Dropping both feet to the floor. We're going to do the other side now. Whichever one you haven't done yet. For me, it's the right. So I've got my right knee bent. Right foot is active. Good. Left foot firmly connected to the mat. I'm going to take stock of this before I move forward to do anything else. So lifting the left foot away from the floor, drawing the legs in toward the front of the body, checking in, keeping the feet active, settling the shoulder blades to the mat. Good. Bringing the face to neutral, you might notice your eyes feel heavy in your head. Good. Bringing the left foot down, uncrossing the right ankle. Let's just go ahead and extend the legs. Reach the arms up overhead. So here we are, reclining five-pointed star. It could be a luxurious morning stretch of your choice, or evening stretch. That's when you're doing this. Good. Or lunchtime stretch. That's when I'm doing this. So in any case, just take up a little bit of space. Take a few full breaths. If there are some other poses you'd like to do, this is probably a good time for it. Otherwise, I'm going to suggest some sort of restorative, restful pose. You might call it Shavasana, final resting meditation. If you have additional props, it could just be the pillows off your bed, or it could be blankets, blocks. There are a lot of restorative things that we can do after a yoga practice of any intensity. And also sometimes just doing restorative poses would be the thing. So in any case, let's make sure that we do something to rest. Let's make sure that we hydrate. Let's make sure that we take care of ourselves and our communities and let our loved ones know that we love them, okay? If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. You could comment in the comments section on YouTube. I'm very open to feedback, and if anybody has special requests, then please let me know, okay? Thanks very much all. Have a good weekend.